Aaron, does he sound everything sound okay to you? I'm getting like a weird like digital sort of hum in my thing, but I think it could be just my speaker.
I think it's just you. Everything's been pretty good. There's been a couple of moments of like that sort of dropout.
Yeah. No, I think he's good. I think you're good now. Yeah. It was just a weird thing where it was like I was hearing like almost like a digital fuzz in my right ear, but I think it was probably just my microchips.
That's called age.
Firing. Yeah. Well, I got the COVID vaccine, so it's the microchips, interacting with the magnets.
Sure.
Yeah. So, they're radio signals and stuff like that. Apparently, I wasn't supposed to criticize the clock, and they were letting me know that. Yes, this is not where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, right. It's the satellite was probably passing over you at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's probably
affecting them. Yeah,
that was probably it.
And that happens twice a day too. So,
there you go. There you go.
Let's do this. Welcome back to Native Tongues, your favorite podcast where we chat with musicians and writers about where they call home and how that place influenced their voice. I'm your host, Aaron Palmer, and I'm joined, as always, by my good buddy, Ken Hall. If you like what you hear, take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and check us out on Instagram at Native Tongues Pod. Now, we've got a cool guest this week. If you grew up with MTV, there's no doubt you heard his band's hit singles over and over again. He started out in a number of small bands, playing everywhere from subways to local venues. He eventually got the chance to tour with Beck, but after feeling like he needed to chase his own creative pursuits, he went back to his band in Seattle, Washington, the Presidents of the United States of America. They quickly built up a following in the area, eventually got signed, and went on to sell over 5 million records. You may remember some of their anthemic singles such as Kitty, Lump, and Peaches. After that, he adopted the name Casper Babypants and went on to write 19 albums of children's music, which he is still doing today. He's also written a number of albums under his own name. Let's welcome the joyfully funny and talented musician, Chris Ballew.
Sounds like the end of a real cautionary tale.
It is.
It was.
I was just saying, so I'm a little older than Aaron is, and I was saying how when I was growing up, we had a fuse box with actual fuses, like, the kinds that screw in and do that.
Yeah,
now everything's like switches.
Like little glass fuse.
Yeah. I was saying, and it was like you could stick a penny in it, and then that just basically negates the whole point of the fuse. So your house is probably going to burn down. Like that's just going to happen, if you take that route. So,
but you won't kill yourself with one hand.
That's true. But so when you go to get the penny out, you got to use just the screwdriver with one hand, because if you have two hands, that's how it makes a current right through your body.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like an insta kill.
Right.
These are the things. These are the warm lessons I learned from my father.
Yeah. I learned my father's big two things that I still do, which are be on time.
Ooh, it's a good one.
Unless you ask to push 15 minutes and get a reply.
Right.
And Ken could learn that one.
Yeah. Whatever you borrow, return it in better shape than when you borrowed it. Yeah. Those are the two tenets that he left me with.
That is
Those
very
are good pieces of advice. I had a manager at one point that told me like always be on time, but he said his rule was if you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, don't bother showing up.
Yeah. See, I don't believe in that. I believe in like, bam, like I think I signed on at 10:15. Boom.
Nail it.
Perfect.
Because if you're early, then the people aren't ready for you. And it's like,
I mean, we were barely ready when you came on. So
yeah,
we as a band, the Presidents as a band were incredibly punctual. It was one of our like top things, which I really loved. But we got burned by that so many times because, photographers, radio stations, all these people we had to show up for would always, because we're a rock band,
right?
They'd tell us to show up, half an hour before we actually needed to show up. So,
no,
like, we're here. So we had to hurry up and wait.
That's the worst.
Yeah, low expectations of you.
The worst version of that was Spain. We were supposed to be on a certain green on a golf course in Spain for a photo shoot, but they told us to be there 3 hours before we needed to be there. And
wow.
Yeah, they were so relaxed. It was just like, you know,
Like, we got stuff. I got better things I could be doing.
yeah, we had better.
You know,
We're in Spain. Why would we show up on time?
right?
Right.
Well, isn't that like a Spanish thing anyway? Like, just
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that model of it's
3 hours is a safe
Ahorita.
window.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to it eventually. Yeah, that's actually one of my worst things. Actually, I was going to say real quick, just as for I work at a advertising agency and that kind of thing by day, but my worst thing is like hopping on too early before like the accounts team and all that stuff. And like I can talk to people, but it's just I'm always like, no, I don't want to have to do the small talk thing.
Mhm.
So it's like if you're the first one on and the client's there, then you're like, hi,
Hi.
how you doing?
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
can't really start talking business yet because the people
Yeah,
aren't
no,
there.
you
Yeah.
can't do anything right. So you're like, it's warm out today. The sun,
Yeah.
sun came out.
You know, that person you're calling is in Alaska, and they're like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Like,
What are you talking about? Right.
who are
you?
you?
That's funny that you mentioned that because everyone in our friend group refers to Ken time,
Yeah, sorry.
which is kind of like Spanish time, but maybe a little wider of a window.
exactly. But all of our friends will know that they have not been electrocuted. So I have that going for me as well. So I didn't get the on-time memo. I did get the hey, your son not to get electrocuted memo. So
Yeah.
everybody brings a certain skill, to the group.
Yeah. It's like
Balances
Gilligan's
out.
Island.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Chris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, very nice meeting
thanks
you.
for joining us.
Thank you for letting me to push 15 minutes. I did a sauna this morning, and at 10 o'clock, I was totally dripping with sweat. So
If you listen to our last week's episode, it opens up with me talking to Ken because I had just went for a run and I had a towel next to me and an ice pack on my neck. I was like
This is
crying to yeah.
That is so dumb. I was like, I've done that into a million meetings though, where you sit in a meeting and I'm just like melting, and I'm like, okay, please just get it together here.
I could not.
that's when you go like blur, 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 blur on the video.
Yeah.
What do they call that? There's some word for that anyway. Enhance or no, I don't
Right.
know.
That's like that
Defense.
90s term whenever they're looking at something on the computers in movies. Enhance.
Yeah. Like
Enhance.
Blade Runner. It's like enhance.
Yeah,
Enhance.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So where to start? You know what? Before I got to share this with you.
Okay.
Presidents of the United States of America.
I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah, a few people do, I think.
Couple.
So I almost hate to say it. I was not a fan when you guys came out, and it was
fine.
and that can till today.
I was
That much
surprised that anybody was a fan when we came out.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine was like just that I was too cool for school. I was a musician and I was like, they only have 3 strings in their guitars. They're not a real band, And then I guess some years later, I heard you all over the place and I actually like listened with my grown-up ears,
Musician ears.
my
as opposed
musician
to
ears.
your-
And I was like, damn it. I was just jealous before. These guys really rock. And
That's good.
the reason I reached out to you is because I'm always looking for music to play in my car for my kids so
Mhm.
that they don't take over my phone and put on really stupid stuff, that's like just annoying kid noises.
Oh, yeah.
And I put on Peaches a while ago and my son loved it. And I was like, it's a good one to reach out to.
That's cool. How old are your kids?
My son is 9. My daughter just turned 12.
Okay. They're out of because I have, 19 albums for 0 to 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baby pants, but your kids have aged out of my world probably, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just past that.
I listened to a bunch of it, a bunch of the Casper Babypants stuff too, because my kids, so like I have 12 and 15-year-olds, so they've certainly aged beyond that. But we would always listen into the whatever the XM station is for kids, the Kids Playhouse.
Kids Place Radio.
Kids Place Radio. There you go. I was like, man, this stuff is right in line with that. Like, does he get play on there?
Oh yeah, I get play on there. Although it's a long story, but that whole channel is going through some very sad revisions. They're
Really?
turning it into an automated channel. My good friend Jack Foreman, who is kind of like he was like the creative director of that channel, got fired with no notice, and they're just
wow.
into like a AI programmed.
Are they doing the Monkey House thing still?
Monkey House is gone.
No way.
Yeah.
That was a go-to for my kids. They were like, "Yep, put on that." And the morning show girl,
What's her name? Mindy.
Mindy. Yeah, there you go. Birthday shout outs and all that stuff. So
Yep. Yeah, all that's gone. And Jack's a real good friend, and he was devastated. Yeah.
Ugh.
So he's started his own like sort of I don't know, Patreon based thing I'm not sure where or what that is yet, but anyway, it's out there
Gotcha.
for those that care. As far as you not liking the band, I have a distinct memory of getting into Dave Dieterer's car. He's the guitar player in the band.
Okay.
I'm on the passenger side. He's on the driver's side. He's unlocking the door. We're talking over the hood of the car. It's a old red Volvo. It's very vivid. And
Oh my God. My family had a red
we kind
Volvo.
of started the band, and we were kind of getting going and played a few shows. And he says over the hood of the car to me as we're getting in, if some major label wanted to come along and pay us a bunch of money to tour the world, I'd totally do it. And I said, me too, while thinking, you're insane. Nobody's going to pay us money. This is just for us, just because it makes us laugh.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Nobody will ever front this band, So,
How old were you then?
oh, that was like right when the band was starting. So that I was 29.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you were old enough to not be naive about it too. You're
Oh,
you're
yeah,
doing
and
it,
old
and you're
enough.
doing it just purely for the love. It's not like, hey, let's do this and we're gonna make it happen.
No, we weren't Nickelback. We weren't like engineering songs to be widely accepted. We were
Yes.
like, so far the fan base for these songs is the three of us.
It's like our podcast. We have this
Yeah.
we have
Yeah,
a
right?
fan base that is
Yeah.
fan base, hopefully
Yeah,
three
yeah.
by the end of this.
Right.
Well, and I actually watched that Nickelback thing the other night, and I kind of came away from it feeling good about my choices because I don't feel like I ever I don't want to say maybe Nickelback, maybe
They're the
gen-
easiest to
it
shit
just
on.
happens that the taste, what they love, is also
Right.
very wide and
Yeah.
middle of the road or whatever. But what I love is quirky and weird and funky and personal. And so anyway, I maintained those attributes to what we did, and we were successful.
People gravitated to it.
Yeah, because we were having fun. And thank God we weren't more successful, because I always like to say that I'm not famous, I'm famish.
Yeah. in the zone. Why do you say that?
Famish is so nice because you get to do fun stuff, get to do podcasts, talk to people, and get to tour the world and make a living, and have appreciative fans interact with me, and we have a love connection through the music and all that.
You're still accessible.
I don't have to worry about security for my kids as they go to and from school, or some rock stars I know have had cars driven into their homes while they're on tour, and super fans living in their house, which they come home to.
Oh my God.
Just really intense shit.
Who was that?
Eddie Vedder.
No way.
Yeah,
Wow.
man. He was telling me about it. It was a nightmare. A girl drove a pickup truck into his house, and he came home from like 2 weeks on the road, and there she was living in his house with a pickup, smoking in the middle of the room.
Couldn't use the front door or even find a window.
As I remember, it was through the front door that the truck.
Okay. Well, that's
Okay,
at least
fair. Yeah.
there's at least a thought process there, right? If you come in through like a corner, you're like, well, that was just dumb.
Yeah, right. Big beam. Anyway, so that's all that. So yeah, I never bothered when people say. In fact, my wife, Kate, was the first time she saw the Presidents was us opening up for Soundgarden at this huge show, and she missed us both nights, but she didn't care because her friend was late or something.
Yeah.
She didn't care because she didn't like the band. She only went early out of curiosity, like, what's this dumb Presidents thing all about? So
Right.
she was a heavy rock fan.
yeah.
So
She was there for the Soundgarden.
totally there for the sound. We were there for the Soundgarden.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Their opening act canceled, and they called us last minute. Like,
Oh, no shit.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That was
Yeah.
actually so my first but so I grew up with like my parents were like folk people and also friends. I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, but so close to the DC sort of folk thing. But like we had friends who were professional musicians, are professional musicians, Grammys and stuff like that, that do kids music and things like that. But
Yeah.
I grew up listening to like Peter, Paul and Mary and like Peter, Paul and Mommy and going to see like concerts like that all the time.
Yeah.
So as I was listening to your stuff, I was like, it kind of reminds me, like I play for my kids too, but like Marvelous Toy, Tom Paxton. But my first real concert that I would say was Billy Joel. My second real concert was Danzig. And I saw Danzig
Yeah. Right.
at the Ritchie Coliseum on the University of Maryland campus, which was basically a stone, like a cement box. Like it was so loud in there. Um, but they had two openers. I can't remember who the first opener was. The second opener was some skinny guy coming out just screaming at the top of his lungs, and it was so high pitched. I was like, "What is this?" And he had these dreads, and it was Soundgarden. And they were on
Wow.
the Louder Than Fuck tour, or Louder Than
Okay.
Love tour for the kids.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my gosh, please make it stop. It's just making my ears bleed, you know. Little did I know the trajectory of those two bands.
Yeah.
Is that like the gymnasium at UMBC?
Yeah, it's at Maryland, University of Maryland. But yeah, it's like it was the old basketball arena, and like it's literally just like stone steps for the bleachers and that kind of thing. And it was
that time we opened up for Soundgarden, same thing. It was an old like ice hockey arena. It was just cement.
oh
But
my gosh.
I thought they were built for a big cavernous room. I thought they just filled the space beautifully.
Yeah. We were, like I said, I think they were still sort of working it out, in my opinion, as
Sure.
far as trying to figure out what their vibe was going to be. Took them a little bit.
Yeah. I still love them.
So where was that in terms of your like success trajectory?
Well, opening up for other people, number one, was something we just did not do as a habit. We turned down all kinds of like Kiss and, big acts were asking us to open up. I think Lenny Kravitz asked us to open up. But we had a rule, which was we don't open up for anybody. We'd rather play for, a 10% crowd, like 500 people rather than 50,000 people, if the 500 love us, So I think we broke that rule only a few times. We broke it for Soundgarden because they're friends of ours. And they were in a spot. We broke it for Tom Petty because he invited us to do the last two nights of his 21 night stand at the Fillmore in the mid 90s. And that's a whole story. That was incredibly great. Oh, we did a co-headlining tour in New Zealand with POD.
Oh yeah.
I loved POD. I was a big metalhead.
That was such a weird tour. It was great. It was like we only played like half-hour sets, and the opener played half an hour, and we flip-flopped every night, like who was headlining, and we became really good friends with those guys. Actually,
where was that?
That is wild.
In New Zealand, it was POD and the Presidents going all over New Zealand.
Oh my
God! What a weird mix.
Oh my God, we had some funny, good times with those guys. So that was kind of opening up. We did the same thing with Supergrass, little flip-flop tour.
I feel like that aligns a little better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we shared a publicist with them, and we loved them.
Yeah.
Anyway, why am I talking about that? Oh, I guess, yeah, the Soundgarden thing was in 96, so we had already been established and everything.
Gotcha.
In the early days, we definitely did not open up for anybody, ever.
That's such a cool stance of just, again, like you said, we're not in it to try to like launch our career. We're just trying to make the music we love, and hopefully people like it and we can live off of it, but it doesn't need to be, we don't need to be superstars.
What we were trying to live off was the off-gassing, I guess, of a crowd of people that loved us, whether it's, like 50 or 100 or 250 people. But to get the room to really go up and elevate, we had to have that love. And so that's why you don't get that opening up for anybody. So
certainly not the stadium, big arenas and that kind of thing.
No, exactly.
That's wild. So where were you from? Was it Portland or Seattle?
From Seattle. Well, technically Bellevue, and not even technically Bellevue, technically Yarrow Point, which was its own little town. There's Seattle and there's a lake called Lake Washington. And then there's a bridge. And on the east side of that bridge are three peninsulas. There's Hunts, Yarrow, and Evergreen Point. I was from Yarrow Point. Our own little town. We had a mayor. We had our own 4th of July parade, which still goes on to this day, which is really all the kids with streamers on their bicycles and classic cars and stuff like that. And
we were just talking about that before you came on.
We were talking about getting our kids' bikes ready for the 4th of July parade.
Yeah, it was idyllic. It was an idyllic place to grow up. I loved it. And there were a lot of like vacant lots and blackberry brambles to dig caves in, and a lot of trouble to get into. So it was super fun.
Was there a music scene?
In Seattle?
In Seattle, I know there was.
Oh, you mean where I grew up?
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all. None. No. This is like,
small town America kind of vibe.
Yeah, neo-colonial ranch house kind of upper middle class, bedroom community kind of thing. So yeah, no. The music scene was me and my friends we would sit on, like when we were a little older, we'd sit on the roof and blast Raisin Hell by Run DMC and drink Old English 800. Pretend
Nice.
we were cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
My friend Dave and I Dave Feely, who I grew up with, we used to know every word on that album.
I can picture the album cover and playing it in my bedroom with Raisin Hell. Of course, starting out with Walk This Way because that was sort of the gateway, but then It's Tricky and all that. And just, oh man.
Yeah.
So good.
Papa picked peppers, but rum rock run. Humpty Dumpty fell down. It's his hard time. I've gone.
Yeah. We didn't have I didn't have the Old English at the time, but
yeah. You probably lucked out. I think I killed too many brain cells with that stuff, man.
Likely.
Right.
But anyway, no music scene, but it was just a beautiful little place to grow up.
Did you play music growing up? Like, were you in high school bands, that kind of thing, or like killing people's garages and stuff? Or
I was mostly piano. I started piano when I was 4, went all the way to, I think when I was about 12, 13, something like that, I picked up a guitar and started figuring out chords and was like, this is way easier. Plus, piano, I was playing, classical music, kind of a mix of classical and ragtime. And I remember there being sort of a buzz that I would possibly be a concert piano, like a classical pianist when I grew up. But I didn't gel with reading sheet music. It was like this language, I was too opaque. I couldn't really get fluent in it. And I had the vibe, I had the feel, they used to say, he's got the touch, but he doesn't have the
doesn't quite have the vision.
Yeah, the technical stuff, all the physical stuff of being a piano player and all that. So that was, and I remember also auditioning for a boys' choir when I was 7. I was really young, 7 or 8. Huh. And at the audition was it was a rehearsal for the choir, and I just got ushered in, and the choir director kind of hit some notes on the piano and had me sing them. And he's like, okay, you're in right now. And they were getting ready for a European tour. And I'm 8, a European tour with this crowd of boys I've never met. I remember my mom went into another room and I got put in the choir and got put in the, place where they were rehearsing, and we start rehearsing, and I see her face through a glass window in a door. She's kind of looking in, seeing how I'm doing. And I was like, me out of here.
Yeah, right. That's so scary.
Oh my God.
Did you not do it though?
I auditioned, was accepted, and quit all on the same day.
Oh, did they want you to open for other bands? For other choirs?
Yeah. Soundgarden were just like tiny kids then. So they had like a Muppet drum kit and all these little plastic guitars.
It's one of those, you just want to be invited and know that you could do it. I don't actually want to go. I don't actually want to do any of those things. I just want to know that you want me and I could do it, and now I'm good. Check that box.
No, it was a really foundational, visceral reaction against touring, though. That I still.
Oh, weird. I wonder if that sort of sunk in some core memory stuff there or something or other, like that feeling of, I don't know if I want to go around the world with all these randos.
Yeah, to me, it was like, that's not where happiness lies, or safety, or you can't really hang your hat on that. I just felt unsafe. I felt like I was too vulnerable, and that happiness.
You're 8 years old.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, right.
Joy, happiness, love is all home, not out there.
Right. You're not trying to get away from the mean streets of Yarrow's Point.
Of Yarrow Point.
Yarrow Point.
Yeah. It's funny. I haven't talked about that choir thing very much at all, but it's really interesting to bring it up and think about how, that did kind of like forge my attraction to like making music based on the vibe of a place.
Right.
In Yarrow Point, and how I grew up as a child, these endless summer days, wonderful times. I guess I felt like you have to nurture that, and going away to sort of advertise the vibe of where you came from. Why don't you just stay where you are and enjoy the vibe instead of like saying, this is what it's like to be me, with your songs.
Yeah.
Just be yourself and stay home. That was my attitude. Now, some people love touring, so. I was
gonna say that's like the anti-Seattle grunge way of thinking.
Yeah. I mean, touring itself, I'm sure, is just a grind too. I think it seems like it's great for the first, it's great till it isn't, basically. And then you're like, all right, well, now I'm just doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. We tried to keep it, alive by making a different set list every night, and to a certain point when the crowds were smaller, we could interact with them and have funny, like little jokes that go back and forth, or some weird audience member we'd call out and he'd talk to us and some song would form even like
On the fly, give us some lyrics and let's make it
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
That's
Totally.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah. I had an improvisational band in Boston before the Presidents did their thing with this guy, Mark Sandman, who taught me how to play the 2-string too. And it was an improvisational, we'd play for like 2 or 3 hours at this bar and just make shit up all night.
Wow.
Did you get paid for that?
Just in beer.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's all you needed, right?
It was an Irish
At the
pub,
time.
so I drank all the Guinness I could handle.
There you go.
Yeah,
Did you go to college out there?
No, I went to college in New York, State University of New York at Purchase, otherwise known as SUNY Purchase.
SUNY Purchase, yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic school. Loved it.
How did
Nice.
you end up, what drew you from, as we just talked about, like that being home in Seattle, that area, to then let's go all the way across the country to go to college,
Yeah.
Metropolitan
especially
area.
SUNY Purchase.
Well, one reason I really wanted to go to Cal Arts, but I could not afford it. It was at the time, 1980, this is 82 when I was looking at colleges. It was 14 grand in 1982. You do I don't know what that is now, but it was
$6
way beyond-
million.
Yes, $6 million. $1 trillion. My dad his deal was, he said, I'll give you $5 grand a year for college. If you go to a college that's more expensive, you make up the difference. If you go to a college that's less expensive, you can have the change. So Cal Arts really was the one I wanted. But when I was looking at the numbers, SUNY Purchase, if you were even still an out-of-state resident, it was like $4,200 a year because it's a dollar subsidized school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great location out in the woods, like 40 minutes north of Manhattan. So you could get on a train and be in Manhattan, easy breezy, or you could be out in the middle of nowhere, which appealed to me, the space.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time hiking the woods around that campus. But yeah, so it was economical and it was an adventure. I was like, I don't know anything about New York. So
right, I'm assuming, did you go by yourself? Like you didn't have friends?
Yeah,
like, hey.
No, I went by myself. I went with my mom the year before to scout a few colleges, including SUNY Purchase. But then, yeah, when I went out, I went by myself. And man, I was off by a day. I showed up the day before I was supposed to show up for some weird reason.
On time.
So all the RAs, all the RAs, were having. I arrived in the evening, and they were all kind of decompressing from a day of orientation and getting their, dorm rooms together and all that stuff. And I walked into the college pub, and they all turned and looked at me like,
"Oh my god,
what is a kid doing here?" So they like showed me to where I was going to live, and it was all this, orientation, a little bit of orientation. There's the bathroom, rigmarole, and then they leave, and I kind of get into bed, and I look up. I'm in a bunk bed on the bottom, and I look up, and there's a single ant crawling on the underside of the mattress, and I just lost it.
Really? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What decisions
like,
am I made?
God, I'm like thousands of miles away, all by myself in this cavernous brick dorm in New York. I have no idea what I'm doing.
I picture that, like you guys, like you going into this, like the teacher's lounge in The Simpsons. Like you go behind the curtain before they're all ready. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
nobody's ready for it. That's
know.
scary though. I did like a residence check-in. I did some sort of early admissions thing or whatever. But so I was one of the ones that got in there ahead of time, like even as a freshman. And man, so they were like, yeah, you can come in and help other freshmen like move their shit in. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Whenever I get to move in early, and I thought that would be cool.
Yeah.
And my role in that was to operate the elevator. So they had turned the basic elevator operations off. And so I had a key.
Did they give you a pair of white gloves too?
Oh my God, dude. No, but I rode that freaking elevator for like 6 hours. And I'll tell you what, that night laying in bed, I did not see an ant, but I was like, my stomach is turning. I still feel like I'm like on this like ride. I could not turn it off. But yeah, it was terrible.
You had elevator sickness.
Oh my God. Yeah. Who knew? I did not know this. But I'll tell you what, it solidified that, crossed that job off. Don't want that job anymore. So
No way.
it seemed glamorous at the time, but
That's kind of like what being on tour is like. It's like being in an elevator that in fact, in Japan, one time we went to, I think it was Osaka, And we played on the 17th floor, we slept on the 16th floor, and we ate on the 15th floor. Came from the airport, got in a van, went to the hotel, got ensconced, 3 floors of activity, went back to the van, went back to the airport, and left. We never like set
Wow.
foot in the city. So a little bit like an elevator sickness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's bizarre. Most of the city is like vertical there, right? I mean, it's not sprawl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it's an island nation. So,
Yeah.
although they're not spreading the cities out to the boundaries of the sea necessarily, but there's the island, the space. That's why I think in Japan everybody's so polite, because there's like a idea of limited space, and you have to kind of keep the entropy up so everybody gets along. Because you can't just keep going out. You got to like deal with each other.
Right.
That seems un-American.
I know. I was going to say, what happened in New York then?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. True.
The island of Manhattan, I don't think it's like a square foot of grass, except that it isn't like a park.
Yeah.
Yeah, dedicated park. So, New York, how'd you bounce up to Boston, and then how'd you get connected with your band?
Yeah, so Dave Dieter and I played as an acoustic duo called the Dukes of Pop back in the 80s. So that seed of connection between he and I and songwriting was kind of connected, and that was during college. And then after last semester of college, an artist came from Boston named Chris Janney, and was a visiting artist teacher, and me and my bandmates took his class. Oh, in college, I should mention, I lived with it was total Monkees or, the Beatles in Help kind of vibe.
Yeah.
We all lived in the same apartment. We had all of our shit set up in the living room. It was like a rehearsal space. So it was super fun.
Nice.
But Dave Dieter wasn't involved in that. It was other people. So the last semester, I think it was just me and the drummer from the band took this class. And at the end of the year, this artist said, if any of you want to work for me, you can come to Boston and you've got a job. So we didn't know what we were going to do when we graduated. So the drummer and I
said he needed an elevator.
I was going to say,
Actually, yes, there was elevators involved. So this artist did these big architectural installations of light sensors that, when broken, would trigger keyboards to play either musical notes or sound effects. So he would put them on stairways in public places.
so you're walking up.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
Like
one time we ended up going to Paris and putting them in the subway. So when the subway came in, it broke all the beams, but then people waiting for the subway could reach up and play the thing. So it
really
ended
cool.
up being, I was building architectural models of the spaces that he was going to install in so that we could work out the kinks, of the space. So it was a lot of foam core and hot glue.
Is that what you thought you would be getting into? Like, that just seems so it's music adjacent, I suppose.
Yeah, the great thing was that me and my drummer, and then eventually the bass player from the band in college, we all lived up in Boston, and we all worked for Chris Janney. And then this other guy worked for him named Mike Dwyer. And Dwyer started a fanzine or a zine called Egg. The band was called Egg. The zine was called Egg. And we had this
multimedia.
kind of philosophy-based little funny pop trio. And we busked on the street and played in the subway and just, super DIY.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to Boston. And then eventually this guy, Billy Ruane, who booked a club called the Middle East, saw us playing in the subway and came up and was like, I want to book you guys in my club. So we started doing that and playing actual gigs. He was an absolute genius at booking weird show,s
I was just about to ask, what kind of music were you guys playing there? But how would you describe it?
Well, I was playing kind of like heady, like left brainy pop. Like the songs kind of had these existential themes, but they were kind of bouncy and funky. And some President songs ended up coming out of that, like Tiki God, Naked and Famous. And
that's so funny. I was listening to Tiki God, and I was like 1/5 of the way through the thing, and I was like, this reminds me of that Bobby Brady episode when they went to Hawaii. And then here it comes back filling right in. I was like,
Bobby Brady found the idol in the rubble. Yeah, had no idea it was caused so much trouble. That was such a fun song to write, for sure.
Oh my gosh, it's so silly. It's
fun. So somehow with the Boston thing, I ended up meeting Mark Sandman. I have no memory, no idea how I met him. And one time he and I sat down and tried to remember, and we could not remember, but it just feels like we've been connected forever. So he played a 2-string slide bass, And I started hanging out with him, and I had a little student model acoustic guitar, and I'd broken a couple strings, couldn't afford to put new strings on, so I was playing a 4-string guitar for a while.
Yeah.
I was hanging out with him, and he had a 2-string that he'd made out of a guitar, so you could fret it instead of the slide. And I picked it up, and I just went, oh yeah, that's it. There it is.
That's the sound.
That's the sound. That's because
So
I could wear my influences on my sleeve. Like I could make a song that I thought sounded like a Sex Pistols ripoff, but through the 2-string, it became new. So it was a really cool like filter to put all of my influences through. And
I was going to joke if it was like a decision made for economical purposes of now I can buy less strings.
yes, part of it was. Part of it was like I'm very much a minimalist, like tuning fewer strings, buying fewer strings, changing fewer strings. I was like, that's a nice bonus too. But mostly it was just like the feeling like, oh, this is creative freedom, like.
So it turned into that. I mean, as a kid, when I was listening to you, I was hating on you out of, your necessity to play fewer strings.
Yeah.
Before it was a choice. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And then, so I played 2, and eventually Dave Dieterer, after I moved from Boston back to Seattle, which is a big, like a pivotal move. Eventually, in I think 92 or 3, I had been going back and forth between Seattle and Boston during the early 90s.
Yeah.
But I finally was like, I woke up one morning in Boston all like sick, and I had a skin rash, and I was eating bad, and I was partying too much, and I was just like, and I was cold, it was like another Boston winter where I was freezing.
Brutal.
What am I doing here? I'm from Seattle. I'm from this beautiful place that is my home. So I bought a Volkswagen van from a friend, and that had no heat, and it was winter. I had to drive from Boston. I had to drive all the way down to Florida, and then all the way across the bottom of the country because I couldn't heat the car.
That was purely for the climate.
Purely for the heat. Yeah. And
you're not a chubby guy either. Like we're all skinny guys. I don't have a lot of body fat.
This is a Volkswagen van where there's like just a sheet of metal between you and the front of the car.
Yeah, like a microbus.
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah. So I distinctly remember on the beginning part of that trip in Virginia, there was a rest stop with a fireplace that was happening. It was on fire. And I just could not leave that rest stop. I spent like 6 hours at that rest stop.
You're like, I should go, but I'm not going to. I feel like that's a setup for a movie, though. I could totally picture that somebody wakes up sort of in their thing, and then it's like, I gotta go, and I bought a used VW bus and went across the country.
It's a classic move. I lived in vans a few times. That artist Christiani used to lend me his van for a couple weeks. I'd take a couple weeks off and just tool around the Northeast and live in my van.
Just explore.
Yeah, just explore, go out to Cape Cod, go to Block Island,
cool.
Like hop around. Yeah, it was fun, but I definitely didn't want to live in a van full time. It's hard to deal with like the smells. Problem.
I see. Probably, yeah.
Food, like you cook one meal and it's like you're reliving that meal for days.
Yeah.
It's a dirty little secret of van life that nobody wants you to know. So
I was going to say with the strings thing, it's weird for me because I feel like, obviously, so, okay, you went from a classical piano, right? So you have a billion keys approximately.
Yeah.
And so then guitar, and you're like, all right, this vibes for me. And then down to the 2-string. And yet, it's crazy to me that that's what freed you sort of, where you feel like now I can be really creative. Now I've found my zone, when I would think a lot of people would be, if I started with 2 strings, I'd be like, I feel limited. I feel boxed by this. And yet, now I have 6 strings to work with, which seems even more, my world has gotten bigger. And that, I'm saying, it's interesting to me that you found your sort of inverse way into your creative zone. Yeah,
limitations have always been an attraction for me. I loved working on a 4-track because you only had 4 tracks. And actually before that, I was sound on sound. I had 2 boom boxes. I'd go back and forth through a little Radio Shack mixer.
Yeah.
And
take me through that again. You did what?
I had 2 boom boxes, right? Yeah. And how did I do it? Well, at the beginning it was 2 boom boxes, just speakers and mics, and I would just record into one, press play, record on the other, and as it was coming out, I would add stuff, and then I would go back and add. So everything ended up with this like very intense tape compression. It was like,
That's cool.
And it was terrible music. It was like, me singing with a fake English accent, trying to be, I don't know what, Spandau Ballet.
Nice.
Bad,
Nice.
but it's and I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but the albums I'm making now under my own name, this whole arc that I'm doing as Chris Ballew, I actually am cherry picking songs from that era and finishing them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's
Turns
really
out
cool.
it turns out some of the intention in those songs was really kind of great, but the delivery was just awful.
We just didn't have the vehicle. The world was you weren't ready, or the world wasn't ready for it.
No, nobody was ready for it. It's funny. I went into a little bit of a nostalgia listen last night of some of that stuff, that old Four Track stuff, as I was getting ready for bed. And I always think when I listen to it, like, this is just for me. Nobody's ever gonna hear this. Ever.
What about your wife? Is she there for those sessions for your, like, listen to this thing?
No.
Is she there for it, or is she like, no, I'm good?
I don't think I've never played her any of that old stuff.
No.
When I was doing Casper Babypants, she was very involved in that. I mean, her energy inspired that whole arc of albums for sure. She's not as involved now because she's kind of doing her own thing, but we share a studio building, so she hears the songs come together. She hears the same bass part like 900 times.
Oh, gotcha.
She's a musician too?
No, she's not. She's kind of like a Ringo songwriter in that she will say something hilarious, like Ringo said, "It's been a hard day's night," or
Right.
Yeah.
8 days a week, or "Tomorrow never knows." Those were all Ringoisms. And Kate's the same way. Like, she'll say, my flea has dogs instead of my dog has fleas.
Cool.
Yeah, she's got the Ringo mind.
That's very cool. And I did see where you said that her kind of art kind of grounded you or put you in that space for the kids stuff and all that stuff. Her art's great, by the way. I did.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool. I had been searching outside the Presidents. We're touring. We're in this rock band. And I was like, the rock band is fun and everything, but it's like painting with primary colors: guitar, bass, drums, vocal. It's like yellow, red, blue, brown. Drums are brown. And I was like, I want to paint with all the colors, having grown up playing like classical music. And my mom totally got me into classical music. I used to go to the symphony with her when I was a little kid. My favorite thing was falling asleep at the symphony. I just love it.
Really? The drift off and the warm hug of the.
Yeah, man. When Nevermind came out, I used to put that on 11 and just go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the fabric of the music I'm making now is kind of to envelop the senses and make you pass out.
Really working on. Best not to be driving listening to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Be careful. If I'm I'm kind of working on a current song and I'm listening to the mix and stuff and I find myself drifting off, I'm like, there we go. That doesn't mean it's mellow necessarily. It just means that it's enveloping. Like,
it's your ambient. Yeah,
exactly. But with distortion. So.
Yeah. I have a buddy who I was never a huge Tool fan, but he's like, for me, man, it just totally mellows me out and puts me like, it's that whole thing. That's that symphonic hug of metal music. It just eclipses all your inner chatter. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite way to listen to Nevermind. I listened to that album that was in Boston when it came out, so I wasn't around. Although I do remember, I have a memory of being at the house where Mudhoney lived. I guess I was back and forth, and I was home when that album, right before it came out, I guess it was, because they had a copy, and it was a big deal. Like, hey, check this out. So I remember them putting it on, everybody's standing around, listen to Smells Like Teen Spirit, and somebody lifts the needle and goes, everything's going to change. It was just so... that's like so obvious to everybody in the room, like, okay, here we go.
Wow. That is killer. So was it weird for that to all be happening in Seattle while you're in Boston or across the country,
I didn't think much of it. I didn't feel compelled to go back because the music, my first reaction when I heard Nevermind was I was trying to write songs like that, kind of on that 4-string guitar with a contact mic and a distortion pedal. I was kind of trying to write these like gritty songs.
Buzzy kind of stuff.
But harmonically super rich,
Yeah.
And I was not really succeeding, and I didn't really have a plan. I didn't have a band. It was just I was playing with my 4-track, and when I heard Nevermind, I was like, never mind.
All right, they did that. Move on to the next thing.
Literally, it was like, well, I'll just stop doing that and listen to this because
They did it better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I wore that cassette tape out.
Yeah.
Absolutely wore it out.
I remember being in two things. I remember one, sitting in a temporary classroom in my high school and seeing one of my friends had written in Pearl Jam in whiteout on his backpack. And I was like,
On whiteout.
what is that? I was like, Pearl Jam. What is that? I don't even know what that. I remember that. And then I can remember then, so Nirvana drops Nevermind, and then like it hits. And I can distinctly remember being in a parking lot listening to it in my friend's car stereo, like just on repeat, like one night, just like the whole thing just over and over again. It was insane the way it like kind of just took over.
Yeah. That happened occasionally back in the day where something would come along and change everything, like I don't think that's capable of happening now with so many different doors you can open to find music.
So I had a thing. So I saw that you lived with Beck for a while.
Oh, right. Yeah, that happened. I forgot about that part.
What?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was, gosh. So there was a girl named Mary Lou Lord in Boston who also was busking on the street. And so we knew each other from that scene. And we had kind of a thing with each other where if I was walking through Harvard Square and she was busking and she needed to use the bathroom, that I would take her spot and hold the spot and play some songs while she went and used the bathroom. And she'd come back.
Cool.
She would do the same.
Great relationship.
Yeah. And we ended up in a band together in Boston. I was playing a 2-string called Strumpet. And it was Mary Lou's songs. And I was kind of, accompanying her. And we had a kid drummer, this like 16-year-old protege drummer. Anyway, I moved back to Seattle and in 93 finally, and she called me and said, hey, I share a publisher with this guy Beck, and he's about to be signed and he needs a band to go on tour. And she thought of me. And I kind of wrote it off. I was working at home for my brother, setting up appointments for him to go sell computer networks. So I was like I was set. I was like, making cold calls in my underpants, playing guitar if I got inspired and writing songs in between calls. Anyway, and it's like somebody calling and saying, hey, this guy, Juniper Two-Step is going to be huge. You're like, I don't know who Juniper Two-Step is.
Yeah. Slim chance.
Can he meet me in my garage or do I have to go somewhere?
Yeah. I didn't have a sense of, I think that Loser song was getting played on the radio, but I didn't listen to the kind of radio stations that would play it. So anyway, I hemmed and hawed. She called back again, said, you really have to meet him. He's coming through Seattle to do a couple shows. So I want to introduce you. So Mary Lou was in Seattle with Beck and introduced me to him. It's a whole story. He was playing acoustic, and I just loved the way his lyrics were so cut and pasty and culturally like this jigsaw puzzle of cultural touchstones and references and stuff. And it made like movies go off in my head. I was like, that is great. And we kind of bonded over that. He invited me down to Olympia to play on One Foot in the Grave at Calvin Johnson's place as my audition to be the slide player in his. So I was going to do the.
Oh, yeah.
So I went down there and, passed the audition, I guess, because about 2 days later or so, he called me and said, do you want to go on tour? And I was like, yes. So I was the only band member not from LA. So Beck very graciously let me live with him and his roommates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When I arrived, again, this is like going to New York and being off by a day. When I arrived at Beck's house to live there and start rehearsing, he was gone. He was in London doing Top of the Pops. Huh. But his roommates were cool. They're like, yeah, come on in. We're making music for pornos. So why don't you just come in and help out with that?
I think your slide guitar could work really well for that bar.
Yeah. They had hooked up with some agency that would pay $50 all in, work for hire for any piece of music. And so if rent time came, they're just like, let's have a porno party. And they just make songs.
So did you have to like screen it all first and play along? And
No,
we're not scoring it, right? We're just making music.
yeah. We knew that the one they were working on, we knew the title and the premise and everything, but we didn't see anything. We just made stuff up. So I just jumped in, wholeheartedly and started writing these songs with these people.
Oh my God.
It was pretty
Are you
fun.
writing lyrics?
Do you remember the title?
Oh, I remember the title. It was called Melon Fucking She-Males.
There's no confusion, at least when it
I
comes
wonder
to
what that was. I wonder what that was about.
I don't know. I think it was sci-fi drama or something.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So we wrote a song called The Melon Fucking She-Males and a song called Shave Me. And I can't remember any of the other titles, but we did 6 or 7 songs. And then we played a gig as the Melon Fucking She-Males.
Was that on a marquee?
For the
That would've
person who
been great.
happens to go and was like, oh, look, I've got their concert video. Let's pop this in.
I know. I'd love to. Like, I don't have those songs. I'm such an archivist. I'm surprised I don't have those songs, but I don't.
That's hilarious.
So that was great. So that was a fun version of the New York.
So you're waiting for Beck to get back while you're doing this. You're making music for pornos, and so
Hey Ken, can you Google that title for me? Just because I don't want it messing up my algorithm.
Not a chance.
I never thought of Googling it. I'll Google it. I don't care. I don't care what Google knows about me.
Right. Yeah. I'm at my office right now. They would probably frown on that.
It's not very inclusive of them.
No, that is true. That's a good point. I should just be like, yeah, we accept all kinds here. Who am I to judge, right? What if you Google it and it's like Chris Ballew?
It is a whole thing. I'll tell you what. Okay, I'm gonna close that window.
Oh my gosh. Screen share. Just kidding.
Yeah. So anyway, I ended up living there with Beck as we rehearsed for the tour, and so that was my first kind of quasi living in LA thing, and I really enjoyed it. I thought, yeah. I thought LA as a place was great, like vibrant and kind of multicultural and funky. And I was, immediately hanging out with Beck. I was kind of inserted into this creative scene, which was really vibrant and doing stuff that was getting on MTV. And, I was falling in with these people who were creative and doing their own thing, but also it was reaching a lot
commercially happening, right?
Yeah,
for them too. And
which was a big conversation that Beck and I had a lot in the car as we drove around about his transformation from bedroom 4-tracker to major label and how to handle that and what little pitfalls and booby traps that he could sense were being set up along the way. It was really great. It was kind of like I got to sit next to a famed tornado and then learn from the famed tornado. And then I got my own famed tornado. Yeah.
It seems like he's done a pretty good job with that though, too, as far as staying sort of like, under the radar, but also his people who love Beck really love Beck, which is cool. I mean, that's a great way to be.
Oh yeah. I feel like he's just been exploring and doing his own thing, and it happens to resonate with the people it resonates with. And it's fantastic. I have nothing but true deep respect for him as a songwriter. I mean, actually, while we were hanging out, I was sort of feeling like my mojo songwriting wise was shrinking in his presence because he was so on and he had such a great vision for what he wanted to do. He knew his palette. It's like taking old funk and old country blues and folk music and then kind of filtering it through this
modern hip hop kind of rock
modern thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a wide palette though.
Like absurdist poetry and he just knew what his palette or his, and that was a real big lesson for me too. Like in the future, like with Casper Babypants and with the solo stuff, it's like I understand my palette, and when you understand your palette and your purpose, songs just are like wham, there they are. So. I definitely learned that from him. I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I was just like, how is this genius little guy pulling these songs out of thin air that feel like they've been around for 100 years?
Yeah.
Right.
But he knew what he was doing.
That's wild. His career could have gone any direction too, because, his fame obviously wasn't overnight, but to the rest of the world, it seemed like it was overnight. Like he went from a nobody to everywhere, like a household name.
Yeah, it was pretty overnight for him too. It was quite disorienting,
I would ask the same of presidents, where you get put in sort of a, hey, all right, this is what you do, and we need to do this and make this, sort of that corporate grind of the music
Well,
experience.
we fell victim to that for sure. Not as much aesthetically, because we kind of set the precedent with the major label, like on the first record, basically saying like, you guys, the label does not toy with the music. Your job is to get it out there and make sure it's available for people, like distribution. Basically, we licensed our first record to Columbia for 7 years, so we got it back, and we did that instead of taking a big advance and living the high life, which none of us were really interested in. We just, like, our wonderful lawyer David Cotico helped engineer a deal where we licensed it, so we own that record, which is fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Man, that's some incredible forethought.
Yeah, but they did pressure us time-wise to jump on making a second record fast.
Sure.
That we should have not done. We should have listened to our manager, Stacy, who said, don't do it. Take a year, take 6 months, whatever you need, and just go back to your lives and fill your tanks. And we're like, no, we got it. We don't want to stop. And so that we were very tired when we made that record.
Yeah, I mean, following up on the first one, I mean, that thing's just like a hit factory.
Yeah, I know. And it kind of took a lifetime to make that first record, because, again, some of those songs were from Busking Times and Egg and my band in college, Asleep Standing, and all these, the songs that kind of, like, some of them had kind of ridden the wave of all these different collaborations and come out still great. So they kind of won on the first record. And then when they came to the second record, we're like, well, here are a bunch of songs that didn't make it on the first record.
Here's the B-sides of that.
Yeah, B-sides.
Yeah. I love that you just, the very first song is the Kitty. As your first introduction, because I love that song. I like songs with,
thank you,
sort of silly noises in them, as well as like the anchor, but also as a cat owner. Grew up with cats. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what cats do.
It's a real cat named
oh, really?
Yeah, Chima. It was Mark Sandman's roommate's cat, Chima. And that was literally like, we were sitting in the living room jamming, and I was recording it, and Chima came in and went around my legs. And Chima was one of those cats where she would be like, come on, love me. And then you'd go down to love her, and she'd be like,
yeah.
Kind of like all the girls I was dating at the time.
Oh, there you go.
Which I guess is what I was getting, is kind of like, that's the
anthropomorphic in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, looking back on it, like, with some better perspective, like I said, my distaste came from jealousy. I have always been jealous of simple songwriting. I've played guitar and I've written like all my life, and I have a habit of overcomplicating things, or feeling like I always need to put more in and it needs to fill out. And then when I hear something just so clean and simple that just like gets it, you're like, like, this is what I want. How do you break all that down? I mean, I guess it's kind of, led up to that point in the sense that you talked about liking having fewer strings and being more minimalist, but like, were you trying to emulate a sound, or are you guys just goofing around and that's what came out?
That's a good question. I think sonically, believe it or not, Lenny Kravitz was a huge influence. His first two albums.
Yeah, I can see that.
I made a compilation tape out of his first two albums of all my favorite songs, and I listened to that just in 1991. It was all about that compilation. And the sounds are so simple and almost like floating out in space, and the mixes are so great. You can be like, oh, I want to listen to the bass now. There it is. I want to listen to the drums. There they are. And he's left in, kind of screechy moments where he kind of went off key. I think in the very first song, Flower, maybe it's not the first song of the album, it was the first on my compilation, Flowers for Zoe, his voice cracks and he leaves it in. Yeah. So it's kind of like, Paul McCartney with his 4-track making his first solo record kind of feel to that. Spacious, and it's simple and it's groovy. And it, I always was, when I was listening to that stuff, it's like, I want to sound like Lenny Kravitz musically, but sing about frogs and pigs and monkeys and kittens and peaches.
Right.
I don't want to sing about saving the world, although I think it's important, but lyrics always seemed a tiny bit on the nose to me. I was like, why don't we save the world by just showing people what joy sounds like?
Sure.
And then maybe that's
hard to come across.
I wasn't trying to save the world, but I was like,
Yeah, you need different messages for different people though to hopefully make a
Yeah.
positive kind of impact. So,
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
people need to have it on the nose and say this is what it is, and other people need
Yeah.
to be demonstrated.
But that simplicity also comes from either confidence, which is hard to come across early on, or just sort of that blasé attitude of, whatever, we're just goofing around. This is just for us.
Yeah. Or the other way to look at it is like now when I'm writing and recording, I tend to throw way too much stuff on it. I did this with Casper too. I get the song done and I'm like, oh, I want to put horns on and strings and banjo and mandolin and whatever else. And I let that happen. I let it get bloated and I listened to that version for a while. Like, yeah, I'm amazing. Look at all the shit I did. And then I have what Nancy Wilson from Heart calls a mute party, which is where you just start taking things out. Say, all right, let's get rid of the banjo, except maybe in the third verse for 2 measures. That really works. Let's keep that. So you end up keeping slivers of your clutter, but all of a sudden the song is more available because there's more air around it. So lately I've been taking songs where I've been piling shit on them for a couple, 3 years and just going down to just piano and vocal. And I'm like, oh, there's the song.
That's cool. I practice taking Ken out of the podcast often. I feel like it just sounds so much clearer.
It does. It's a lot cleaner, a lot more simple. A lot of times he'll just edit everybody out except for Aaron. It's just sort of Aaron's thoughts as he's going.
He's just looking at himself.
Yeah.
Just asking questions and then just letting it breathe.
It's called
which is really nice. Yeah, which is really, really nice and very heady.
Yeah.
lets you fill in the space as a listener, which is nice.
Yeah, right. It's a new form of podcasting, the dead air stuff.
That's right. I mean, I don't want to call it brilliant, but that's
it's so simplistic.
Yeah, we're stupid.
Yeah, that too.
The songs you're writing, I mean, so you're coming up with all these super catchy songs. Were you guys psyched? Or are you like, these are stupid, let's get out and play? Or you're like,
no, we were psyched. We really worked a lot to be a good band because our attitude was if we're going to be funny and weird and surreal and kind of quirky, we have to also be good.
Yeah, if you're tight.
Yeah, if we're just okay and silly, then that's there's no tension there,
Yeah, that's a fine line to walk, though.
Yeah, I was just to say that I think in our early days, what drove audiences to us is that we were 3 dorks trying to rock.
Yeah. So your sympathy, like you see it immediately, you're like, oh, look, these guys are trying so hard and their hearts are in it. And God bless them.
Look at these poor little nerds trying to sound like Aerosmith. Come on. So anyway, of course, when you get bigger and you get in front of 50,000 people on a racetrack in Germany at a festival, you can't do that. So that's another level that was lost. But
yeah.
So
what was the trajectory for Presidents from sitting around? Well, actually, let's hop back a step. You were touring with Beck.
Yeah.
And did you record with him? You didn't do any of that slide on the album, did you?
No, that was already done. That album was in the can when I came along. So no, I just did it live.
Okay.
So, yeah. I was, so the Presidents had, Jason Finn, our drummer, joined Dave and I. Dave and I had played out as a duo again, like we did in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason saw a version of that where Dave Thiele, the kid I grew up with, that we used to drink the old English 800s and listen to Run DMC, he was our drummer. So it was Dave Thiele, Dave Dieterer, and me. And we had a band called Go. And Jason came to see that band and just basically insisted that he be the drummer.
Did you have a drummer at the time?
Dave Thiele was the drummer. But
How did Dave feel about that?
He wasn't in it for the long haul. He was just having a lark, just having fun. Although he's a great drummer. He played a cocktail kit, standing up, kind of this stand-up drum kit.
Okay,
that's cool.
Yeah. So, and the legend has it that Dave Dieterer planted a fan in the crowd with a softball. And in between songs during the set, Dave kind of wordlessly just went over to his amp and picked up a catcher's mitt and put it on and kind of started working it a little bit and then put it out. And that fan threw that softball right into the mitt. So if you're in the crowd and you didn't expect it, it was just like a ball coming out of the crowd, just like
he's prepared.
And then Dave just like wordlessly puts it down, and then we go on. And Jason was like, at that moment, he was just like, I am in this band.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
great.
And so that was December of 93 that I think we played our first show with Jason. And then that's
You guys in LA or Seattle?
in Seattle.
Okay.
The Romper Room. And then the spring of that was December 93. And then I think it was like March or something, or no, January of 94 is when I went down to LA, and then we toured.
So it's right when Beck was just,
Presidents existed, and we went to this place called the Laundry Room Studios. Barrett Jones had a thing where it's like you can record what was it, like 12 hours for $350. You can just have the studio to do whatever you want. So we did a demo tape in 13 hours, like walking in, did the whole thing, walked out. That studio, of course, became famous later for the first Foo Fighters record.
Oh, no shit.
I saw them on their first tour at the UMBC gym. That's why I was asking Ken earlier about that.
Actually, we opened, that's another band we opened up for. We played their second ever show at the Satyricon in Portland. And Dave was trying to convince me, Dave Grohl was trying to convince me that we should headline because more people knew who we were than the Foo Fighters at that time.
Wow.
I don't think the line that's going all the way around the block and back.
Yeah.
I think it's for you.
Right.
You have to man up and headline. So that was a case where I forced him to headline. After we finished our set, their gear was on stage with our gear. We finished our set, we're moving our stuff off, and he's kind of like playing with his amp, and he's got this like panicky look, and he looks up at me. I'm like, Dave, what's wrong? He's like, I don't know where to put the knobs. It's just completely losing.
Just in his own space, just space and like
just didn't know what
whatever.
to do with the knobs on his amp. So I kind of was like, it was a Fender Twin, I think. So I was like, I kind of knew where the knob should go, and I helped him out.
Good for you. I was going to ask a question about that for the guitar tech. Do you ever like hand your guitar, the bass guitar or whatever to get a bass or whatever, but to the guitar tech and have to be like, what? I don't even know what this is. What are you asking?
They hand it back to you with more strings on it.
Yeah, right. No, we took our own techs, so they knew what we were.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That makes sense.
I did used to make our tech Mike Musburger run this. I found if you take brand new strings and just put them on the guitar, they sound way too like poingy,
twangy. Yep.
So I made him run them through his mouth, put saliva on them, and then like dry them off, and that made them instantly feel like they were broken in. So,
oh man,
sorry, Mike, I made you put all my strings in your mouth.
Well, you're the one who had to play on him.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's true. Really trust him.
Mike is now Ringo Starr's drum tech, so there's a Beatles connection there.
Oh, that's cool.
Does he lick his drumsticks before he starts?
His new cymbals. The cymbals are a little too glistening.
Yeah, they're right.
Too splashy.
That's terrible.
So the Presidents and the Beck thing were going at the same time because we'd made that tape and we had played a whole bunch of shows. And then I went to LA to be with Beck. So Jason was selling those demo tapes over the bar at the Comet where he worked. And toward the end of the second Beck tour, I kind of needed to move on. Like that whole dynamic of being sort of eclipsed by his genius and my mojo withering was getting a little disturbing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And plus I called Jason and he's like, we're repressing this thing over and over again and selling them over the bar at the Comet. And then we got to get back to work. So I was like, yeah, I got my own thing to do. So.
Gotcha. How was that? Was that amicable, like rolling out?
Well, yeah. The moment I remember I was in the back of the bus, in the little lounge in the back of the bus. I was like, I gotta move on and do my own thing. And he was just like, oh yeah, I knew this was everybody told me this was going to happen.
Funny. Funny. You're like, I really locked in on this whole she-males and melons kind of vibe. So
yeah. I need to pursue that. I need to get some surgery and some melon.
Yeah,
I need more wah pedal in here. So you went back up. Presidents are like, was there anyone showing up to your shows before you left?
Oh yeah, sure. We were playing, Jason Finn, and also not only worked at the Comet, but he was a booking agent for a club called Mo, which was right across the street. Mm-hmm. So a little bit before I left, but mostly after I got back, he just ran an experiment and just, booked us like nonstop. and we thought, let's just keep playing and see if it matters or if something happens. And the crowds just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so funny. I know so many bands that sort of do that, but then it's like you're trying to get your friends to come out and see you and all that stuff. And so then they're like, you know, we're going to do shows very sporadically. I think Droopy talked about that too. He's like, I try to book a show like once every 2 months so that I can fill the room with my friends and whatnot.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, we played, 3 times a week, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So, that experiment worked. It was also fertile ground to plant our seeds in, basically, because, Kurt Cobain had died in April of 94. And then this was like summer 94. So it's kind of like there was this
hunger.
Yeah, it was kind of this big void post the, bulge of grunge. And everyone was kind of like, what's next?
Yep.
Yeah.
And also clubs were naturally crowded because of that what's next curiosity. And
right, everybody's probably just going out to see what's going to be, to see what's the next band and try to say that they were there at the beginning.
That's what it felt like, for sure.
So how did the signing process work for Presidents? Like, so did you do an A&R thing? Like somebody just approached you after a show?
Yeah, well, it was pretty overnight. It was one of those shows. I think it was summer. That summer, there was a festival called Bumbershoot, and there was a lot of people in the industry in town for that festival because it's Seattle, and Seattle's still hot. And we did an ASCAP showcase at that club, Mo. And I didn't know this, but the crowd was full of major label people because we had a buzz. So it wasn't at the festival, but it was adjacent to the festival.
Sure.
And I had no idea, so we just did our usual funky, weird ass show. And literally the next day, we had 7 major label offers.
Oh my God! Wow!
Holy smokes!
Interested, not necessarily hard offers, but 7 labels who were like, "We want to sign you."
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was.
I think it's a testament to your how tight the band must have been. It's offbeat, it's off kilter. It's not like it doesn't scream out, "This is radio pop" at all. But you guys must have been just so locked in, and the energy, I'm sure, was high.
Yeah, we were, and the crowd was into it, because we had built them up, and they knew all the songs and all the parts and little shout outs, and they knew what we were going to do. So the labels, I'm sure, were witnessing this love connection. So anyway, we narrowed it down to 2 options, Columbia and Maverick, which was Madonna's label.
Yeah.
And we made the right choice in Columbia, but we really didn't know what to do. We were I remember going to this hotel in LA, the 3 of us, called this hotel called the Farmer's Daughter. And we were staying there, and we all went into one of our rooms, and we're just like, well, what do? We got to decide. This is like work. Are we going to go with Madonna or Columbia? Madonna had come to see us. Madonna got us. We had a really great business meeting with her, which is a whole story.
Meeting with Madonna? At that time?
Yeah, I had a very good meeting with Madonna, actually. She really understood the band and what we were, the whole caring deeply about what we were doing while appearing to not care at all.
Yeah, sure.
She got that. But while we were there, her assistant played a cassette of an artist from Canada that they just signed named Alanis Morissette.
Never heard of her.
Yeah, I know. Well, see, we had never, it was like somebody saying, "Hey, we just signed this new person, Banana Corvette."
Right.
Okay.
Banana Corvette sounds like a good band, actually.
That does, actually. That's going to be a Casper song.
Yeah, Banana. I like it. So that wasn't really a factor. More of a factor was that the label president, Freddie DeMann, we had a bunch of little deals to do 45s that we had started before we blew up, and we wanted to honor those deals, and he thought they threatened our bottom line or something, and we're like, he doesn't really get it. So anyway, we went with Columbia, which turned out to be great because we kind of saved Columbia's bottom line for a year and a half or so, and we were, cocks of the walk.
Really?
Yeah. And
nice.
Meanwhile, we would have been footnoted on Maverick because the Alanis signing turned out to be such a, story. Madonna's female empowered label signs female empowered.
Right. Power artist too.
Yeah, and we would have been 3 white men just
But we wear ties, right?
We play less strings. Actually, Ken and I went and saw her Broadway show.
Alanis, that is. Not
It
Madonna.
was fantastic.
Yeah, Jagged Little Pill.
Madonna's. Yeah. Madonna did give me one really good piece of advice. She said, she kind of, as I remember it, she kind of took me aside at the end of the meeting and said, whether you sign with me or not, know that you will never get critical accolades for the craft of what you do because you're funny. So don't wait around for like the critics or the, taste arbiters or whatever to give you this gold star.
Yeah.
Just depend on, rely on your relationship with your fans and your own creative purity and influence, and you will go far and be happy. So
is that kind of like because she got it? Like,
yeah.
And I would say that does not apply to her, not necessarily her. So that's cool that you just had that sort of vision.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But unfortunately now I see her on talk shows and she's kind of lost the plot.
Yeah. Well, that's the industry. I think you're like, you dipped your toe in, you got famous, and then,
Right.
and then got out and said, hey, I'm still me. And I get to do Chris Ballew thing.
Yes. Decades later, how do you ride, being the biggest star in the world and stay grounded to a degree, I guess?
Yeah. I feel like somebody who could dispense advice like she did might not get plastic surgery at her age.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, she's watching this. So, hey, Mags, give me a call.
Is she the other listener?
She's an avid listener.
I didn't know. Aaron never tells me who the one is. But, I do think that there's different pressures, for women in that space too. I always think about that because like just the ridiculous plastic surgery that goes on now, that's just become part of the culture of that. I'm like, just be old. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, be old, man.
Totally fine. Just
we'll get there.
Do you.
Just eat well and exercise.
It's all good. And the more you try to fight it, the weirder it gets. And the longer you try to fight it, the weirder it gets. And it's just,
I know. Just, be old. I've got some.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, they're not real settled in yet, but they're not permanent. But boy, I'm going to have a real crab apple-y face later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You hide all those surgeries pretty well for anyone who's not watching right now.
He's like Botoxed out the wazoo. He's like, I don't even have ears.
I have these crow's feet installed, actually. These are top of the line crow's feet right there.
Twins. But I think you look the same though. Like it doesn't appear that you've aged since 1996.
I know, it's weird. Again, I think I looked old then and I look old now.
So you just jumped into it quick and
grew into it.
Ride this. Ride this forever.
This is a natural habitat. I'll tell you real quick a peace story that happened to me. Oh my God, we were in Australia on tour. It was a day off. I went to a movie theater, or I stumbled on a movie theater. It was playing a movie called The Fifth Element.
Oh, I love The Fifth Element.
Multi-pass? Yeah, at the time, I didn't know what it was. I just looks interesting. Paid my money, went in. I loved it. I'm in love with this movie. It's so good. And it gets to the end where Lilu is digesting all of the history of, humanity.
Yeah.
I had to pee really badly. So I'm like, okay, I feel like this is the lull before the final act. And I ran out and I'm like, where's the bathroom? And this guy's like, it's in the basement. And so I start taking the stairs, one landing at a time, landing, just like bam, bam. Yeah. And I do a landing and I crack my ankle, just like pop, completely shatter my ankle. And
injured?
Yes, very, very injured. And I'm sitting there like this. I'll never forget this moment. I'm in the bowels of an Australian movie theater. I've just smashed my ankle. The movie I'm super into is still playing, and I still have to pee.
What takes the priority?
I know, right? Line it up. Number one, pee.
Number
two, go to the concession stand and get a bag of ice. Number three, go back in the theater, put my foot up on the the seat in front of me and ice it and finish the movie. Number four, I couldn't jump for the rest of that Australian tour.
Oh no.
Wow, talk about having seen the videos of you guys playing live and all that. Like, God, it's such a big part of your ethos is just to get out there and go crazy.
It was sad. But anyway, I've watched that movie maybe upwards of 20 times now. That's one of my top movies.
So when did you decide that you needed to move on from Presidents at that point? Like, what was the?
Oh, right when we got signed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my deep gut impulse was, and I might have even pitched this to the band and the label. Let's not go on tour. Let's just play in Seattle 4 nights a week and have everybody come to Seattle. and would just see the animals in their natural habitat.
And how'd that go over with the label?
It did not go over well at all because, but we did end up sort of crafting a promotional approach influenced a little bit by that attitude, which was for a month. I think it was September of 95. We went all over the country playing pop-up shows for like record retailers, wholesale distribution houses, radio stations, all the people that kind of greased the wheels that helped your music find its way. We would show up at their offices with our little amps and our guitars, and Jason had a drum kit that fit into a pilot's briefcase that turned into the drum. And we would get up on a conference table and play a 5-song set and then leave, and everyone would be like, what the hell was that?
Did they like it? Were there places that were just like not having it?
No, everybody loved it. It worked out great. I mean, I think
cool.
they had some inkling that we were coming, because it was, we were in airports that whole month, just like flying here and there and there and here, just playing for all these different small, mom and pop places, record stores. And so anyway, that was kind of an idea where let's rather than say reaching out directly to the people and trying to promote so much to people, let's grease the wheels that make the music move through the system.
Right. Accessible.
Yeah.
Make it more accessible to the people.
I guess it worked because, we sold 5 million records. So
yeah, smokes.
That'll work.
Did you guys play the HF Festival in DC?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty sure. It sounds like there's a story behind it. I actually might even have the ticket to whatever one you played behind me somewhere here.
Yeah, that was a great show and everything, and really fun bill. No Doubt was on the bill, and the Foo Fighters, and
Yep.
Had a great time.
I ran into Dave Grohl walking around the concourse. He was out because he's from that area. He was just walking around the concourse, and we saw him. And he was like, that was back when we had like the automatic camera thing, whatever, like the throwaway camera. But like,
sure,
got a picture with him and all that. Yep.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I ended up getting he and let's see, it was Fred Schneider from the B-52s, because he did a solo set, and it was Dave and me and the rest of my band and Dave's cousin and a bunch of press people and stuff. We went to the hotel where we were all staying and just got hammered, just stupid drunk. I was pitching Dave on some like rock and roll circus plan I wanted to do. There was a piano in a moat, I guess. It was like 18 inches of water in the hotel lobby, and then in the middle was an island with a piano on it.
Oh, sweet.
And I saw the piano and was like, I'm playing that piano. And I walked through the water all the way out and just started playing the piano. And security came and like dragged me off the piano and took
oh, no way.
The whole thing settled down. And then I went, I'm going to play the piano.
That's awesome. But just wait till you hear me play. Just wait till you hear what I'm going to play. Just give me,
I ended up spilling an entire tray of drinks on one of the most important journalists in rock music at the time, Karen Glauber from Hits Magazine, and I spilled all this shit all over her. And Bobby Gale, who was a publicist at Atlantic Records, rescued me and like got me out of there and took me to my room and like put me. The next day I had to fly all the way back to Seattle, and it was just white knuckles, just the whole.
Anxious, hungover.
It was just like, don't throw up, don't throw up, don't throw up, don't throw up.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. HF Festival was great, especially back in the day when you didn't have the big festivals. It's like sort of a cool thing around here.
Yeah, it was from the band's perspective, it was super fun. It's like standing up and seeing this just packed stadium. It was a real cool a view.
I feel like, you guys would be better. At least it seems like personality wise, better suited to be doing like a festival thing like that, where you're just really kind of milling about with the other bands and being sort of cool in that space, and then go play and rock the crowd and do the whole big thing, but then also kind of get back to who you are, like doing your thing, supposed to be in the center of attention. Like, those were fun. Those radio shows actually were really fun because it was such a weird pastiche of, I remember like, Lenny Kravitz being on a set, Patti Smith being on one. Which was funny because she summoned me to her backstage. It's kind of a long story, but the MC... Bring me the Chris Ballew.
we covered the MC5's Kick Out the Jams on our first record, and we changed the words, and we got refused by the MC5 camp. They said, you can't change the words to that song. That sucks. We can't put that on our record. Our lawyer knew Patti Smith's lawyer, or actually was business partners with Patti Smith's lawyer, and so worked on that angle. And then there's a whole story. I ended up becoming really good friends with Wayne Kramer over this whole thing. But bottom line is, later she was on a bill that we were on, and she summoned me to her backstage, and I thought it was going to be to talk about the eventual permission they gave us to change the lyrics to Kick Out the Jams. And turned out she's like, I arrive and she says, "Oh, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. My kids are big fans of your band. Will you play with them?"
Not sign something. Will you play with them?
Wow. Will you play with them? And so I looked after her kids while she went and did something else. So
oh my God.
I was just summoned to be Patti Smith's babysitter.
Wow. That's hilarious. Yeah. I feel like that's like a she's just testing you to see how bad you want it. Right?
I don't know.
Although, man, if you had your Casper jams at that point, man, you could have just, be like, let me give you some set here.
I could have played for hours. Yeah. Sure. Oh God, when I started telling these stories, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe all this. Just, and you guys you're getting like 15% of all the weird shit that I've been. Yeah, there's so much to forget is the thing. There's so much to forget. Right. It's fun I like doing these sometimes because it reminds me of all these like weird interactions and stories, and kind of what a bizarre sort of, I always kind of cultivated this sort of, I took LSD. Let's get real. Yeah. I took LSD, and LSD really performed as advertised. Yeah. It broke open this door of perception that really, I just rode this sort of perspective for years of allowing things to happen and being sort of open to whatever creative impulse would come through me, and just being cool with it. And just sort of, I don't know, I think it sort of energized my songwriting and energized my availability. Like, when people would see me perform, I think they saw an invitation, maybe. They didn't see somebody kind of saying, I'm up here and you're not.
Right. Yeah. And that approachability.
Yeah. And I think something to do with the universal kind of connectivity that LSD unlocks sort of greased the skids for me to just kind of let my freak flag fly.
LSD or mushrooms? Cool. Like mushrooms?
Yeah, mushrooms.
Similar kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard that from some other people too.
Yeah. I did it maybe 4 or 5 times, and I probably only needed 2. One of them, I lost my body, and that was really awesome because it was very much a fork in the road. It was like, all right, this is happening. You can either resist and freak out, or you can allow.
Or lean in.
Just let it go. Yep. You can't fight it. You can't swim up the stream.
Yeah. And all the times I took it were safe environments with people I trusted, and I wasn't like just out to get high. I was out to really like kind of crack open something that I could.
That was Jim Morrison said, right? Use drugs to expand, not to escape.
Yeah. They give you a glimpse of what you can achieve without them, just through meditation, breathing, exercise, food. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
That seems like more work, though.
I don't know. I stopped drinking 1.5 years ago, and
really,
and I don't know how long that's going to last. But I'm definitely never, I'm not saying never again, but the nice thing about not putting a time limit on it, who was it? I think it was Alan Watts or Ram Dass said something about addiction and stopping and stuff. He's like, don't let the devil know your plans. Meaning like, I'm going to stop for 1 year because you're setting yourself up to fail. So I'm just every day, I'm like, am I drinking today? Nope. Okay. So until
not in the plan.
No, not in the plan. It makes me feel nice and light and like when I say no. So I get to quit every day, which is kind of nice.
That's cool.
I haven't had a drink for the past week. I do this every once in a while. I feel like, I mean, I'm not like a super heavy drinker, but just the body needs a reset, We can't spring back like we used to when we were younger.
Correct.
Maybe like a year or so ago on one of these, it was just like weird timing. It was like, I just took a week off, and then it ran into like dry January. And then I had a friend who was like, oh, I'm going to stop drinking for a week. And I just didn't for like 3 or 4 months. And like, I felt fantastic. Felt great.
Yeah, your baseline joy level goes up. Just there it is. There's your joy. And
Yeah.
I won't get too far into it, but I self-medicated through a not so hot marriage and through not wanting to really be on tour, but being on tour and, not being able to say what I wanted and I needed, and kind of like, tamping down that sadness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, toward the end there, I wasn't drinking a lot, but I was negotiating a lot. Like, okay, I had 2 last night, so I can have 1 tonight, and then another. And it's just exhausting. I just was like, I want my brain available for creativity. I don't want it spinning away trying to negotiate 4 ounces of alcohol.
And like simplifying things, right? Just trying to keep things a little bit cleaner, a little bit more simple. I will say I just got back from a like week-long vacation at the beach with like a whole bunch of other families and stuff. Like,
You just call it bender.
it's kind of a bender.
Yeah.
Very low key. Like, but again, like you said, we don't bounce back like we used to. Like, in my 20s, probably early 30s, I would have, it would have been like every night till 3 a.m, and then trying to figure out how to deal with kids in the morning and doing all that stuff. Whereas this, it's very much more like a couple glasses of wine every night, that kind of thing. It's like much more mellow now, which is good. And I think that's a healthy trajectory to go on.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I just feel like I'm doing my body a favor as I'm 59. I'm 60 years old, man.
Knocking on the door.
Pretty soon I'm going to be in my 70s. And so I'm just kind of like setting the stage for,
I would say you don't look like it though, because you look like you're 25, but then again, if that's what you look like when you're 25, it's a very confusing thing. It's hard. It's hard
old
for my
man in it
brain,
when I was 25.
It's hard for my brain to wrap that.
I was trying to wrap up because we have one final question that we like to end on.
Okay.
Good stop.
Yeah. You'll just have to come back on and talk about your trajectory post presidents.
Well, if there's a last trajectory question, I'm happy to answer it.
Let's just jump into our tourist question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Native Tongues, name of the podcast, we like to talk about where people come from.
Yeah.
We also love to travel and like to know about those areas. So the question is, where do you call home? You've bounced around a lot, but it sounds like Seattle.
I'm going to say specifically Vashon Island, which is where I live now.
Vashon Island. Well, you might have to extend this a little beyond Vashon Island, because the question is, say we're coming to visit for a day. What are you taking us to do from like noon till night? What is the ultimate Chris
Not
day?
like a touristy thing. I don't want to see the Space Needle unless Chris is going to see the Space Needle. I don't need to see the Space Needle.
Yeah.
Hey, Space Needle is actually pretty good. We had people in from out of town last month, and we took them to the Space Needle, and it was awesome.
Okay. All right.
Oh.
Okay. Okay.
Well, okay. So I live on Vashon Island with my wife, Kate, and my wife, Kate, works at the Pike Place Market selling her artwork. So I think
Not throwing fish.
She's not throwing fish. She's throwing drawings of fish. So I would start there. I mean, it's Kate tells me it's the 37th most visited landmark in the world. And so, we have one of those. So I'd start there, I guess. And, against your prejudice, I would go to the Space Needle because they've remodeled the whole, guest interaction experience, and it's cool and beautiful up there.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'd do that, ride the monorail after you do the Space Needle, get on the monorail, which has been around since the World's Fair in '62, and ride that downtown. And then I would immediately get out of downtown. I would go to West Seattle, which is a neighborhood where Kate and I lived before we lived on Vashon Island. I'd go to Easy Street Records, which is at the Fauntleroy Junction in West Seattle. Also, that junction, home of one of the, I think, 5 all-way crosswalks in America. So this is where, like, if the lights change and say you can walk, you can go across, but you can also go diagonal.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's kind of something that West Seattle's proud of. So
of all the things you could be proud of.
Yeah. Go to Easy Street Records, where famously Pearl Jam did a live set way back in the 2000s, I think it was.
Man.
Matt Vaughn, who runs the place, is very friendly and cool. They're a great record store. So if you're looking for music or you just want to kind of experience a landmark, then I would go down to the Fauntleroy ferry dock and I would get on a Washington State ferry for 20 minutes and go to Vashon Island, which is where Katie and I live. And let's see. While here, you can check out one of the trolls that Thomas Danbo, an artist from the Netherlands, has.
Oh, the big carvings.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
wow.
made out of old pallets. And there's a troll here on Vashon that's the king of the trolls, and he's super cool, very big, and you can check out the king of the trolls. And while you're there, you can go down through the woods to the lighthouse, the Point Robinson Lighthouse, and check that out. And beautiful beaches and views of South Seattle and from the water. And then, then I would just come over to my house because you've had a very busy day. Come over to my house. I'll make you a cocktail or a mocktail or some kind of tail.
What's your go-to tail?
I don't really water.
I've had that before.
No, I've kind of become like a tea guy. Like I love peppermint tea, rooibos, ginger, all that kind of stuff. So I love a tea.
You a coffee drinker?
No, never have been. No,
Really?
Caffeine and me do not get along at all. No,
Weird.
I do
It's an
not
energy
sleep.
thing.
I do not sleep.
I was just about to say, you seem like a high energy guy to start with, and so it's probably one of those, So
yeah, and I'm grateful that nicotine, caffeine, they were never part of the thing. Alcohol was, but I'm kind of riding that train out of town now. So I'd have everybody come over to my house. The sun would be setting. We'd have a bonfire in my yard. And just hang out and talk until it's time to go to sleep. And then you get in your sleeping bag and go to sleep in the grass.
That sounds awesome.
you are not welcome in the house.
No, can't come in the house. No. And where we're going is a replica of my property. It's not the actual property.
Right. No.
the tourist
It's
one.
a foam core fabrication.
Yeah.
Everywhere you
Don't
go,
touch the
there's
bushes.
lights.
Don't touch the bushes.
What about food? Is there anywhere to eat on the island, or are you eating in Seattle?
We have one of the top 10 Thai restaurants in the country.
Now you're talking.
On island called May Kitchen. Amazing. The interior is inside of a house from Thailand that they took the panels out of and shipped to Seattle. So you're in this really cool, like dark, woody, funky, magical environment. That stands out and then there's the Island Queen, which used to be a Dairy Queen, and now it's a locally run kind of beautifully done, nostalgic sort of diner vibe.
Cool.
But with gluten-free chicken tenders, like these chicken tenders that are deep fried, chickpea flour, and they're
I'll buy that.
Okay.
great burgers. So I would go there for lunch, Island Queen, and then I'd go to May Kitchen for dinner.
How's the spice level at May Kitchen?
Oh, customizable, but they're not shy for sure. And believe it or not, although it's, some would say the most boring thing to order, their pad thai is exceptional. They also do they do a deep fried, crispy watercress that is so
that sounds good.
Yeah.
White people spicy.
Yeah, right.
White people spice though.
Yeah, white people spice. How much spicy would you like that? White people.
Like white people spice.
We have a friend who was calling an Indian restaurant once, and he said something about brown people spicy, and his wife was like, "You can't say that. Like, what are you doing?" And a group of us went to Austin one time, and right outside our hotel there was an Indian food truck with a thermometer on the side of it, and the top said "brown people spicy." And so he took a picture and sent it to her.
Oh
my God.
Yeah,
it's okay if they say it though.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Although, is it okay if we say white people spicy? Is that okay? We're allowed to say the white people. We just can't say, okay, got it.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Does it come
what
off?
the scale is?
White
Yeah,
power
is there a
spicy.
reciprocal, right? Is there a
God.
reciprocal side of that?
So no white power spicy.
It's also
no.
please not that spicy.
Hold off on that one. All right. Well, we've held you for a long time. This has been delightful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, this has been really fun. I've talked about some stuff I've never talked about, and
Oh, very cool.
appreciate the opportunity to spout off. So
That's
thanks
awesome.
for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
You're
so
a fun
much.
guy.
It's been tons of fun.
Have a good
Take
one. Take care.
Boom, bye.
See ya.